I'm Margaret Hale, 67 years old, and tonight my daughter is waiting outside a locked cabin to see if I burn. Smoke rubs its shoulders against the rafters, and the door groans under a metal bar. Conrad slid into place with the patience of a man who thinks he's smarter than fire. I taste cedar and gasoline. My palm finds an old knot in the floorboard, Benjamin's knot, named by the husband I buried 5 winters ago, and the panel gives with a tired sigh. Cold air kisses my face from the crawl space below. I don't call for help. I crawl. Nail heads scrape my jacket. Ash falls like gray rain. Above me, the flames gather themselves and cheer. I hold my breath, then trade it for the stale earth smell of the tunnel Benjamin built, for bad weather and worse men. He laughed when he said it. I didn't. And now I thank every quiet hour he spent on his careful paranoia. Halfway through, my elbow slips and pain bites deep, the kind that demands you choose. I choose forward. I think of Vivian at 4, asleep on my chest, milk-warm and heavy as a promise. I think of the day she learned numbers big enough to make wishes dangerous. Love, I remind myself, is not a door that stays shut because somebody bars it. The tunnel mouths me into the open. Night air cuts like clean glass. Behind me, the cabin cracks and roars. Ahead, the trees stand black and ordinary, as if none of this is happening. I rise on shaking legs, brush soot from my sleeves, and let the cold finish what the fire started. If I live through this night, it won't be because they spared me. It will be because I refused to end where they wanted me to. Cold stung my lungs as I climbed out of the ground like a root shaken loose by a storm. The tunnel's hatch lay hidden behind a rank of spruce where Benjamin once split kindling in a flannel shirt patched at the elbows. I kept low, listened, and moved when the only sound was the cabin breaking its own bones. Snow crusted the field. I stepped in the hard places and left nothing where the powder would remember me. The service road curved east toward the county highway. I slid along its ditch, pausing when headlights carved the trees. An engine idled near the front drive, then faded. If Conrad wanted to admire his work, he had a strong stomach. If he meant to come back for paperwork, I could not allow it. My pulse pounded in my ears, steady as a drumline that refused to rush. By the time I reached asphalt, the sky had tipped into a thin blue that makes a person's shadow look long and honest. A pickup slowed. Henry Walsh, who taught 8th grade shop for 30 years, rolled down his window without asking questions and told me to get in. His thermos sat between us like a church bell. Coffee burned a clean line to my center. He didn't pry. He drove with the modest certainty of a man who fixes what he can reach and prays over what he can't. He let me out 2 blocks from Helen Brooks's place, a white story and a half with a porch that sighs in winter. Helen retired from trial law the year Benjamin died, and she keeps her porch light on for widows, strays, and trouble that arrives after supper. I made the steps. I made the bell. When the door opened, I let my knees drop to her rug that smelled faintly of lemon oil and dogs and the kind of safety you don't notice until it takes you in. "All right," Helen said, catching me with both hands, voice as even as a level. "Breathe first, then talk." I breathed until the shiver left my hands. I told her about the bar across the door, the gas in the air, the footsteps outside that never hurried because they thought the fire would outwork time. She listened without a pen at first, the way good lawyers do when they need the human shape before the legal one. "We'll need more than a story," she said finally, sliding a legal pad across the table. "We'll need the kind of truth that doesn't blister under cross-exam." She dialed David Turner, a former detective with a coat that had seen too many Januaries, and asked him to meet us at my house in 2 hours with a small camera and 2 evidence bags. While she talked, she set toast and 2 eggs in front of me, plus a teaspoon of strawberry jam because she knows I like sweet things I can control. I ate everything she gave me. Then I stood, steadier than I had any right to be, and said the first clear sentence of the new life I meant to keep. Let's go home. I slept sitting up on Helen's sofa while the sky rehearsed morning. When my eyes opened, a throw blanket had been tucked over my shoulders, and a glass of water waited on the table. Helen stood at the kitchen island, her silver hair braided back, studying me the way surgeons study an X-ray. Not unkind, but already mapping the next move. She didn't ask me to relive every second of the night. She asked for the parts that mattered in court. Who had keys? When did the locks change? What would Conrad want from the cabin besides my absence? I told her about the safe in the cellar, trust papers, certificates, stock ledgers that Benjamin used to polish like trophies. I told her about the little envelope of photographs hidden behind a false back. Pictures of Vivian with her purple cast, her freckles bright as coins, the day she discovered the word billion and laughed like it was hers to keep. Helen's pen hovered, then moved in clean strokes across a yellow pad. "We'll do this the right way," she said. "No breaking in. The house is still yours. We enter like we always belonged there." She picked up the phone and called David Turner, a retired detective who lived on the edge of town. His voice carried the rasp of too many winters, but his questions were careful. He promised to meet us at my place in 2 hours with a small camera, 2 evidence bags, and a patience that didn't waste itself on panic. I went to the bathroom to scrub the smoke from my skin. The mirror gave me back a stranger, hair stiff with soot, eyes ringed in ash, mouth pinched by betrayal. I rinsed until the water ran clear, but no faucet could wash away the sound of my daughter laughing through her practice obituary. I leaned on the sink until my hands stopped shaking. When I came back, Helen set a plate in front of me. Toast, 2 eggs, a spoonful of jam. She knew my appetite better than I did. I ate every bite because survival asks for fuel, not ceremony. Then I slid on Benjamin's old coat, felt its weight settle across my shoulders, and told Helen I was ready. Ready to open doors that were mine, and ready to face whatever my own blood had hidden inside. The house on Sycamore Lane still smelled faintly of polish and books, as if Benjamin had only stepped out for a walk. My key slid home without protest, a reminder that on paper and in law this place remained mine. Helen stood close, her presence steady, while David Turner moved through the rooms with the quiet focus of a man who trusts dust more than words. He slipped gloves onto my hands first, then his own, reminding me not to leave myself behind on doorknobs or drawers. We worked slowly, letting the silence tell us what had changed. The living room looked staged, the pillows squared, a vase of lilies too new for January. David lifted one petal and sniffed the water. 2 days old, he murmured. He followed faint scuff marks to the study door, then bent down to inspect the rug. Fresh drag lines led to the bookshelf that hid Benjamin's safe. My fingers spun the dial from memory. Each click was a heartbeat, each pause a question. The door swung open with the sigh of a tired witness. Papers lay stacked in familiar layers. Trust deeds, insurance statements, letters I had tucked away years ago. But there were intruders among them, 2 manila folders labeled in Vivian's handwriting. David photographed everything before touching it. Inside the folders lay documents with my name, scrawled across the bottom in a hand that mimicked mine, but never lived in it. Transfers of authority, declarations of incapacity, a draft death certificate already stamped with the date of the cabin fire. I stared until the letters blurred. My hand shook when I tried to close the folder, so David closed it for me and slid it into a bag. "Forgery," he said, voice flat as granite. "And not the kind that takes much imagination." Behind the safe's false back rested the envelope of photographs I had hidden myself. They spilled into my palm, Vivian with her purple cast, her lopsided grin, her eyes lifted to me as if I carried all the weather. My throat closed, not with smoke this time, but with the ache of a memory now weaponized. At the bottom lay a small thumb drive, unlabeled, plastic case scuffed from use. David lifted it like it was alive. "We'll clone it before we open it," he said. Helen touched my shoulder, her warmth grounding me in that room that suddenly felt both familiar and foreign. I nodded. Outside, a mail truck groaned away from the curb. I whispered to myself, "Deliver me, too." We carried the thumb drive back to Helen's dining table, the surface cleared as if we were setting out communion instead of evidence. David cloned the files onto a secure laptop and opened the copy. The first thing that bloomed on the screen was a row of audio recordings, each stamped with a recent date. He clicked the earliest. Conrad's voice filled the room, hesitant at first, then steadying as he practiced. "When my mother-in-law, Margaret, passed, it was sudden. It was a terrible accident." He tried the line again and again, changing only his tone. Reverent, shocked, sympathetic, never once honest. I pressed my hand against the table until the grain imprinted my skin. Helen wrote down the time codes, her pen scraping quietly like a metronome. David moved to the next file. Vivian's voice. My daughter's voice. She read from a script about how my memory had been failing, how they had begged me to slow down. She rehearsed condolences as if grief could be scripted, as if compassion were an accent she hadn't mastered. Halfway through one recording, she stumbled, laughed nervously, and said, "Sorry, I lost my place." The sound cut deeper than Conrad's false sincerity. It was the sound of the little girl who once tripped over spelling tests, who once whispered apologies into my collar. Now she practiced grieving me before I was gone. Helen built a timeline on her legal pad, arrows marching across the page. David cataloged each file, his calm voice giving the evidence weight. My chest felt hollowed, the way a house sounds after all the furniture is carried out. When we reached the last file, the date matched the day of the cabin fire. Conrad rehearsed the words. "She must have knocked over a lamp. The whole place went up." Vivian added a choked sob, then cleared her throat and tried again. Chasing perfection. Helen looked up from her notes. "We have proof," she said, her voice flat but certain. David nodded, sealing the forged documents into a new evidence bag. I stood and walked to the window, where winter sunlight carved a white square on the floor. I stepped into it and let the light burn away the smoke still clinging to me. "Proof is not enough," I said. "They need to reveal themselves in the open." Helen met my eyes. Then we set the stage. Special Agent Carla Monroe met us in a beige satellite office that smelled of burned coffee and overworked printers. Her badge glinted once as she set it on the table, not for display, but as proof that every word we spoke would matter. She listened with her chin resting on steepled hands, her eyes sharp but not hurried. "This isn't just a family crime," she said when we finished. "It's a template. I've seen variations across 3 states in the last quarter." She opened a folder thick with photographs, cabins collapsed into ash, hospital beds stripped bare, basements where locks had been changed without consent. She drew a thin line between them with her pen. A doctor signs capacity evaluations like raffle tickets. A lawyer files guardianship petitions and transfers. Then the relatives step in, rehearsed and ready. Your daughter and son-in-law are pawns, but they're useful pawns. Through them, we can reach the core. The word pawn stung, though I knew she was right. Conrad's ambition and Vivian's debt had made them reckless enough to copy a bigger scheme. "What do you need from me?" I asked. Carla slid a legal pad across. "Your memory, while it's still sharp, Write every detail about the cabin, the smell of gas, the sound the door made when the bar dropped. We'll cross-check with fire reports and locksmith records. I need your story before time decides to smooth the edges." So I wrote. The pen cramped my fingers, and my hand trembled when I traced Vivian's name, but I filled page after page until the ink dotted my wrist. Carla read in silence, nodding now and then as though she were stitching the pages into a net. When I finished, she closed the pad. "We have two paths. Rush this into court with what we have, or set a controlled conversation and let them condemn themselves in their own voices." Helen tilted her head toward me, letting me choose. I thought of the recordings, of Vivian laughing between rehearsed sobs. "We wait," I said. "We let them show the world who they've become." Carla tapped the pad once. "Then we bait the trap, and we make sure you walk out safe." We baited the trap with ink and habit. Helen sat across from me at her kitchen table while I drafted a letter to Vivian in the same looping script I had once used for Christmas cards. I wrote that I wanted peace, that I was tired of fighting, that I was willing to sign whatever made things easier. I let the words sag with fatigue, the kind of weariness a daughter might believe because it matched the story she'd already rehearsed. The paper curled slightly in the damp winter air, just enough to look as if it had waited in a drawer for years. We mailed it certified, the way families send official papers when they want to mix intimacy with authority. Along with the letter, we set a time, Thursday at 4. I wrote that I would be in the front room with the original trust documents and my fountain pen, ready to make a new beginning. I told her the front door would be open. People crave honesty, but more than that, they crave the illusion of control. I offered her both. The waiting was its own punishment. Helen made me walk every morning, pacing out the nerves until my legs hummed. David checked the locks, installed cameras, tested batteries, and repeated the routine until caution felt like choreography. Carla parked 2 streets away with a team that could pass for real estate agents if you didn't look too close. On Wednesday night, a courier delivered a packet from Conrad's attorney, full of threats written in expensive ink, warnings about self-destructive allegations and defamatory falsehoods. I read the letter twice, then folded it back into its folder. The weight of it reminded me of storm clouds, loud, heavy, but not always rain. I brewed chamomile tea and watched the steam rise. Sleep found me for 4 hours, and when dawn broke, the sky looked like a clean slate. I've always liked clean slates when something worth writing is about to happen. By Thursday afternoon, the house felt staged, every lamp glowing, every chair in its place. I laid the papers on the table, uncapped my pen, and waited for the front door to open. At 4 o'clock sharp, the front door opened and Vivian stepped inside. She wore the blue coat I had bought her years ago for her first promotion, the one she had called her armor. She looked around the room as if it were a photograph of a place she used to live. "Hi, Mom," she said softly. She didn't kiss my cheek. She placed her purse carefully on the floor and sat across from me at the table. The pen lay between us. I touched the corner of the papers but didn't slide them closer. "Before anything else," I said, "tell me what you're asking me to give you." She stared at the ceiling, then back at me. "Relief," she whispered, "from the work of pretending, from the debt, from him." She didn't say Conrad's name, but the air carried it anyway. 3 minutes later, he walked in without knocking. His smile was broad, the kind that passed for confidence in courtrooms and crowded dinners. "Mrs. Hale," he said, settling into the chair as if it belonged to him. "You look remarkably well." His hand rested on the trust document, fingers soft from a life that borrowed other people's calluses. I let silence grow until it fit all 3 of us. Then I said what I had come to say. I told them I had listened to the recordings, read the forged papers, walked out of the cabin alive because Benjamin had believed in bad weather and worse men. Conrad's smile faltered. Vivian's lips parted, then closed again, like a door she couldn't decide to slam. "You don't understand," she said quickly. The debt, I cut in, is not a match you get to light." I tapped the page with one finger. "Here's what happens. You repeat the lines you rehearsed, right here, while the recorder remembers, or you walk out and face the kind of justice that does not forgive." Conrad leaned forward, his jaw tight. "This is coercion." Before I could answer, the kitchen door eased open. Helen's shadow spilled into the room, and Vivian's shoulders slumped. "We thought you'd be gone before the fire crew arrived," she whispered. "We thought it would be clean." The next second, the front door burst wide and Carla Monroe stepped in with 2 agents at her side. Conrad froze. Vivian covered her face with both hands. Carla's voice was calm, final. "It's over." Courtrooms are where stories get weighed, and ours carried enough stone to hold. Vivian pled to conspiracy, her voice brittle, like glass pressed too thin. Conrad tried to stack denials into a scaffold, but each recording pulled a rung away until nothing remained. The doctor who signed capacity evaluations learned that a pen can become a shackle, and the lawyer who filed fraudulent petitions found his appetite read aloud in open court. Carla's map of states turned into a net, and every knot tightened. I sat through the hearings as though enduring a long winter, steady, layered in patience, never letting the chill reach my marrow. Helen came each day with peppermints in her pocket, unwrapped them like quiet prayers. David spoke on the stand with the precision of a carpenter, measuring twice and cutting once. When my turn came, I told the truth plainly. The judge listened the way good judges do, as if every syllable carried more than one life. When sentences were read, they sounded like numbers, years, conditions. Justice doesn't speak in poetry, but beneath its grammar, I heard the meaning. No one sets fire to your life and then renames the light. Spring waited while we worked. When it finally came, the air smelled of rain on sidewalks and somebody's lawnmower humming 2 streets over. Ordinary, almost holy in its simplicity. I took some of the money that had once been only numbers on a page and opened a wide-porched house with a long table inside. We called it Silver Haven because both words are soft and because we needed softness after steel. People came, women with stories traced on their arms, men who had been told aging was a shame. We served tea, sometimes soup, and we spoke our names out loud until silence learned new shapes. Healing is not loud, it is steady, like rain filling a barrel 1 drop at a time. A month later, a letter arrived in a looping hand. "Because of you." I lived twice. I held it until the ink warmed against my skin. The cabin on the hill is gone now, just a scar where grass will grow back. Some nights I stand there, hand outstretched to where Benjamin's knot once was. It isn't foolish. It's a reminder. What opens can open again. The night asks me if I'm finished. I answer as I always will, not yet. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.